So, a warm-up problem to start. Graph y equals -3/2 sine of x plus 2 on the interval 0 to 2 pi. Okay. So we'll start with that one. While you're doing that, I'm just going to talk a little bit about tomorrow. Tomorrow is an independent learning day for you. And we had originally thought about giving you a worksheet and another worksheet, but then we looked at the backside, and the backside is all stuff that we're talking about on Tuesday. So we're just going to have you tomorrow finish yesterday's worksheet. So right now you should have done, most of you finished the front side of the worksheet yesterday in class. The rest, and then so tomorrow now we'll do the back side. Okay? Rip. So, negative sine curve starts where? Starts in the middle, then goes down, then comes back to the middle, then goes up, then ends in the middle. So a negative sine curve looks like that. Okay. Where did we start?
0.
Started at 0. So that means I can put in that axis. What is the middle point of my sine curve? 2, which makes my maximum, my high. No. 7/2. Which makes my minimum 1/2. Which means then I can put in, let's put it way down. Then I can put in my horizontal one. There. Then my horizontal spacing started at 0, ended at 2 pi, which means halfway, which means halfway, and the other halfway. Today, those numbers, those horizontal green numbers, will change. Okay? That's what we're learning about today. What really are we doing there? No, what are we doing to find those numbers? Green numbers, not blue. How do we find those numbers? How do we find them? Nope. Nope. Nothing to do with C. I'm asking how we find these 5 numbers. I know how we find this number, and I know how we find that number. I'm asking how we find the other 3. Nope. Nope. It's the what? It's the what? It's the middles, right? What's another word? What's a mathematical word for middles? The averages, right? Okay? The averages. So how do we find averages? This is going to be important in the next 2 slides. We add the 2 ends, and then so we only have 2 things, right? So we're going to divide by 2. So we add the end points and divide by 2. Okay? That's going to come into play here momentarily. Okay? So, yesterday we learned all about A's and D's. A's A's told us the vertical stretch, how it controls the high, the low, and the range. Okay? D's have control over A's because D's tells where the middle is of the trig function. Okay? So that puts us at the middle point, and then along with A gets you where the high is, gets you where the low is, gets you where the range is. Today we're going to add in a B value. And the B value is for the period of the function. Now the period, remember from yesterday, was the horizontal distance that it takes to make one wave. Okay? It will be the coefficient on the variable. I don't want to say x. Most of the time it's going to be x. Sometimes it could be theta. Okay? Okay? It'll be the coefficient on that variable. Or, hopefully, it will be factored out for you, and there'll be two sets of parentheses after the trig function. So it'll look like this. Okay? If not, you're going to make it look like that. But that's for two. Okay? So, the one thing that you need to memorize for the B value is that the period of your curve is going to be 2 pi divided by B. Memorize it. Okay? Opposite of B over 2a was the x part of a vertex of a parabola. That's the only other thing that I could compare it to. Yeah. Okay. All right. Absolute value because if it's negative, if B is negative. Yep. Okay. All right. So what I'm saying by that is, if you had, let's say, y equals the sine of 8x, okay, you would start at 0, but the period would be 2 pi divided by 8, or pi over 4, so your function would then end at pi over 4. Okay? So, with that being said, let's make some graphs and have B values in them. First one that we're going to have is y equals the sine of 2x. Certain things you already know about this one. Name me one thing that you already know about this function. The domain is all real numbers. That's always going to be. It starts at 0. We do know that it starts at 0 because we haven't had any C values yet because it's not Tuesday. We know that the middle is 0. What else do we know? Because the amplitude is 1. So the amplitude is 1. So the high value is 1. The low is -1. So my range is from -1 to +1. Yes. Okay. All that's from yesterday. Okay. Now, let's jump in for today. So today we said that the period is equal to 2 pi divided by b. What was my b value for this function? 2. What is 2 pi divided by 2? That's just pi. So the period of my function is pi. Which means that this function then is going to end at pi. Okay. Positive sine curve starts where? Middle, then pi, then middle, low, middle. Do our vertical ones first. Maximum, middle, minimum. Horizontally, starts at 0, ends now at pi. The average of 0 and pi, pi over 2. The average of 0 and pi over 2, pi over 4. The average of pi over 2 and pi, 3 pi over 4. Questions, comments, concerns, clarification? Add them up, divide by 2, add them up, divide by 2, add them up, divide by 2. With that being said, then before you can do this one, I'll give you a second just to write the function down. But that's all that you can do right now, because now we've got a negative b value. So we have to think about our obviosities on the unit circle. Okay? So having a negative angle, because that's what this is saying, you've got a negative input, so we've got a negative angle, means that we're going in the opposite direction on the unit circle. Okay? So from the obviosities, I'll go over here to the window cling. Okay? What can you tell me? I'll use pi over 3 as an example. What can you tell me about the cosine value and the sine value at pi over 3 versus negative pi over 3? Cosine is the same. Sine is opposite. Okay? So those, again, were on the obviosities, and you'll get them in sometime next week. We'll give you a trig identity sheet. But that said that the cosine of negative t is equal to the cosine of t, and the not the cosine again. We just did cosine. And the sine of negative t is negative sine of t. Okay. So really, this function, sine of negative 1/2 x, can really be written as negative sine of 1/2 x, which changes what? It flips your graph over, right? Okay. Does it flip, if it was cosine, would it flip your cosine graph over? No, that would stay the same. Okay. So a negative b value flips the sine. A negative a value flips both sine and cosine. Okay. Now with that being said, now please graph this trig function. should look like that. Questions, comments, concerns, clarification. Good. All right. Go to the next one. Ooh, yeah, I like this one. Two. Domain. All real numbers. Middle. 0. Amplitude. 3. Which makes my high be 3. My low be negative 3. I started at 0. Right? Now I gotta figure out my period. My B value is 2 pi over 3. So my period is going to be 2 pi divided by 2 pi over 3. Keep, change, flip tells me that I'm going to keep 2 pi over 1. I'm going to change it to multiplication. And I'm going to flip 2 pi over 3 to 3 over 2 pi. And then that allows my 2 pi's to cancel each other out, which leaves my period as just 3. Which means I end then at 3. Sine curve, regular type 1. And my middle at 0. Started at 0. We can do that. Went all the way up to positive 3. Went all the way down to negative 3. Started at 0 horizontally. Ended at 3 horizontally. So halfway would be 3 over 2. Halfway would be 3/4. Other halfway, 9/4. Yep. Because 3 plus 3/2 is 4/2, which is 9/2. Excuse me, 4 and 1/2, which is 9/2. Divided by 2 is 9/4. But they'll be so much easier than decimals. So much cleaner. Huh? I did this one in the form of NTC. Let's see, what do we got? We got a domain of all real numbers. Yeah. Middle? Where's my middle? -4. What's my amplitude? 2, which means I go all the way up to. It means I go all the way down to. Okay. I start at 0. My period is 2 pi divided by 1/3, which is going to be 2 pi times 3, which is 6 pi.
Do we need to show our work period?
I mean, I would. But I'm a show work kind of a guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Okay. Cosine curve starts where? Top. Then it goes down and comes back up. Okay. At a high value of -2, at a low value of -6, which puts my middle there. Half of 6 pi. 3 pi. Half of 3 pi. 3 pi over 2. Half of the other one. 9 pi over 2. Last one. I'll take the easy one. Give me another one. Middle.
2,
Middle's at 2. Amplitude.
3.
3, yep, which means my high is at
5.
5. My low is at -1. Okay. Start. 0 for this one. Now we got to figure out our period. Two pi divided by 3 is just 2 pi divided by 3. Which means we end at 2 pi over 3. Okay? Let's see. Negative cosine curve starts where? Starts at the bottom, then goes up and ends at the bottom, right? Started vertically, or I should say over here, the vertical axis can go here. My low is -1. My high is 5, which means my middle then is at 2. Okay? No, cosine curves normally start at the high, but this was the negative one.
So
it's
if it's negative, it's positive.
Put it in right about there. Horizontally. So we started at 0. We ended at 2 pi over 3. Halfway. What's our halfway point? Pi over 3. Halfway of the first half then. Pi over 6. Halfway of the second. Pi over 2. Because it's 2 pi over 3 plus pi over 3 is 3 pi over 3, which is 1 pi, divided by 2 is pi over 2. Okay? So again, tomorrow is an independent learning day, and so you have the back of yesterday's homework sheet that you can now do. Okay? That is your assignment for tomorrow.